Hey everyone, I recently asked you if you had any questions remaining about the Elden Ring lore, and I will try my best to answer them. I've picked a few to answer today. If I haven't chosen your question, don't worry, I may be doing a whole video dedicated to it. And if you like this style of video, let me know and I'm happy to go for a second round. So let's get started. Who is the bald guy that gets depicted in all these statues all over the lands between? There are a couple of intriguing statues you can find, and by bald guy I assume you mean this statue. It's a figure dressed in long robes, hands together, holding what looks like the sprouting end of a long branch. And where is this branch leading to? Well, we can assume it's the Erd Tree. Now this would make the figure a worshipper or priest of the Erd Tree, so they're not necessarily a named individual, but what they represent is significant. This is demonstrated in Lendil. The capital road is lined with these statues. This is because Lendil is a sacred area. The enemies here are not only guarding the capital, but proudly protecting the Erd Tree, and their armour is a testament to their faithfulness. The golden canopy represents the honour of standing among the tree's defenders. Its left breast is emblazoned with the symbol of Erd Tree worship, said to have once been imbued with an incantation of protection. So essentially this statue is a religious icon. You can actually find a perfumer praying to the particular statue, and we know that perfumers are also dedicated to the Erd Tree, their garb demonstrating this also. The thick front apron embroidered with a depiction of the Erd Tree is proof of mastery of the apothecarial arts, and its weight symbolises the onus of both pride and responsibility. So in essence, yes, this statue is extremely important. If the ring was shattered and the demigods have the great runes, why is the complete unbroken ring still inside Radagon at the end of the game? So first let's take a look at Radagon's character model, and you're right, you can see the Elden Ring in his body. However, I don't think it would be correct to say that this is the complete unbroken Elden Ring. So as we know, Marika shattered the Elden Ring and pieces of that ring broke off into shards and were spread across the lands between. That is why demigods are also known as shard bearers. Now when you break something in real life, like a glass or a plate, it doesn't break cleanly into even pieces, does it? Typically you get a larger portion and then a lot of smaller fragments. Now consider that these smaller fragments were what was spread to Marika's children, and the large portion is what remained. There are two reasons why I think this. Firstly, some part of the Elden Ring would need to exist intact because of the Erd Tree. That is how the Erd Tree siphons its power. In the prologue text, it says the Elden Ring is the source of the Erd Tree. If the Elden Ring was completely destroyed, then the Erd Tree would not function. Secondly, Radagon was trying to repair the Elden Ring, key word being repair. This implies that there must have been some remaining parts to work with. And how would he do this? Well, an interesting detail I found is that Radagon is seen iconically hammering away at an anvil, and this is a process called forging. When you heat up a substance so hot that you are then able to manipulate its shape as you please. And that is how blacksmiths repair their weapons. They melt down the metal in order to reform it. So when we think about the Elden Ring in metalworking terms, Radagon was trying to reform it back into a circle. But it wouldn't look exactly the same as how it did originally. He was missing some of that material that had spread and broken off. So Radagon was in the process of repairing it. That's why you can see this dust and smaller fragments inside of him. It looks like the force of his hammering is suspended in time. So what does the original unshattered Elden Ring look like? Well, it's probably not this. And the reason I say this is because of one faint detail. The crosshatch pattern. I came across a Reddit thread that makes a really great discovery that this pattern is also seen on a statue of Radagon at the Church of Bellum, and that shape bears a striking similarity to the real-life application of grafting. So this Elden Ring is Radagon's attempt to rejoin the pieces, metaphorically and physically, by grafting them inside of himself. So in summary, the Elden Ring that you see inside of Radagon is not the original, it's his work in progress to piece it back together. What's the history of Dragon Communion, and what causes those who partake in it to become magma worms? So the Dragon Communion was founded by those who hunted dragons, specifically to absorb their powers. The sacrificial devouring of the heart gives power. Consume a dragon's heart at the altar to make its power yours. So we can assume that one day someone decided to eat a dragon heart and discovered, intentionally or not, that it gave them abilities of the dragon, and as a result they probably banded together with other like-minded individuals to hunt down dragons, consume their hearts, and become even more powerful. And one of these individuals was a guy called Theodorix, an ancient troll warrior. But when we find Theodorix, he doesn't look like a troll, he is in fact a worm. Worms are flightless dragons. So what happened to him? How did he end up like this? The item description for magma breath tells us that those who have performed the Dragon Communion will find their humanity slowly slipping away. Once they fully succumb to their fate, they are left no more than worms that crawl the earth. So Theodorix consumed so many dragon hearts that he actually became one, or rather a lesser version. This explains why our eyes change colour after eating a certain number of dragon hearts ourselves. It's an indicator that the transformation is beginning to work. But sadly, our Tarnish can't actually become a worm, even if you manage to eat all 23 hearts in the game. Anyway, we can assume that Theodorix wasn't the only one who partook in the Dragon Communion, because other magma worms exist. And we can assume they were also once humanoid. In particular, there is a magma worm called Makar, and they drop a sword that confirms that land-bound dragons were once human heroes who partook in Dragon Communion, a grave transgression for which they were cursed to crawl the earth upon their bellies, shadows of their former selves. The use of the word heroes is really interesting here. It seems that all of these worms were previously respected and powerful beings, so why did they need to consume dragon hearts? And did they know the consequences of doing so? Or were they just greedy? Regardless, the act of Dragon Communion is considered a forbidden practice, referred to as a grave transgression. And this is also shown when you go to the cathedral of the Dragon Communion. All of the statues here are missing their heads. We can assume that these were once statues of dragons, but someone came along and defaced them. Someone who didn't like the Dragon Communion and what they stood for. Or perhaps it was a hunter, so driven with dragon bloodlust that they lashed out at anything that resembled that which they hunted. Indeed, Dragon Communion is too primal in nature. Don't you hate it when you're minding your own business in the lands between, taking down some bosses with friends, and then all of a sudden, some tryhard rudely invades your world and spoils all your fun? But what if someone invaded you in real life? What if someone got access to your internet traffic, your IP address, and your virtual location? That's where NordVPN can protect you. A VPN is a virtual private network that can help you boost your online security and privacy. NordVPN can stop third parties from spying on your online activity by encrypting your internet traffic. One of the most common cyber attacks is the man-in-the-middle attack. For example, when you're performing a financial transaction, you are communicating from your server to the bank. The man in the middle is a hacker who will intercept this information and wait until the last moment to redirect your funds to their bank account. But NordVPN can protect you. Their encryption process hides all of this traffic, stopping any hackers from reading and manipulating this private communication. If you use my link below, nordvpn.com/misschalice, you will get an exclusive deal on your security package. There is a variety of plans to suit your desired level of protection. And a huge discount on a 2-year plan will give you an additional 4 months for free. And it's also absolutely risk-free as NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get good and use my link below to protect yourself from hackers and invaders by using NordVPN. Commander Niall and Castle Sol. So Commander Niall's story has a lot of reading between the lines, so strap in for this one. We're going to start with his weapon, a very unique lightning-bladed leg. This is the veteran's prosthesis. Commander Niall, veteran of Castle Sol, offered this prosthesis in exchange for the lives of defeated knights held prisoner. Now firstly, there might be a mistranslation here. How did Niall offer his prosthetic leg if when we fight him, he still has it attached? So an alternate translation could be he offered his real leg to save the soldiers and then as a result obtained the prosthesis in exchange. I found the discussion about the Japanese translation here, although I couldn't find an original source of the Japanese, so if anyone has access to the Japanese text, please let me know. But for now, we're going to assume that Niall sacrificed his leg and then went on to lead these men as an army of no nation. So who were these men and why were they held prisoner in the first place? So they are banished knights based on the fact that they are the common enemy type found in Castle Sol, and they also are summoned by Commander Niall during his fight. Why would Niall offer his leg for these people? It seems a strange and specific thing to do, to offer your leg, unless you have a particular fascination with limbs, like Godric. So it may have been Godric who had imprisoned these knights, making them do his bidding and maybe using them for some of his grafting. But Niall, knowing how Godric favoured the body parts of those who were worthy, offered his own leg as a trade. Another bit of evidence I found to support the connection between Godric and these knights is Edgar. You find him in Castle Morn, overrun with misbegotten. Godric made him warden of this castle. And what is Edgar wearing? The Banished Knight's armour set. So what exactly is a Banished Knight? These knights were sent to the fringes, where they were forced to start anew with only despair for company. They were literally banished from all civilization in order to guard the outskirts and borders. And the reason why Niall chose this particular group to lead is that he could relate to their situation. According to the veteran armor description, Niall is the lone survivor, implying that some great battle or incident occurred at Castle Sol. He was left with no one. He was simply too strong to be defeated, and this aging general could not die, nor did he have anywhere to fade away. So he recruited these banished knights, those who knew what it was like to be abandoned and alone, and he stayed at Castle Sol to protect his long-past master. And who do we know at the time of playing this game is no longer currently alive? Godwyn. So where does Godwyn fit into all of this? So in Castle Sol there is an altar with an item called Eclipse Shotel, and it appears to be linked to some kind of ritual to revive Godwyn. The weapon art attached to the item is called Death Flare, and its description references the Prince of Death, who we know is Godwyn. Returning to your question, how is Niall connected to all of this, and the Halig tree specifically? Well, Miquella was in fact the one trying to resurrect Godwyn, and this is hinted through some ghost dialogue. By the altar where we found the Eclipse Shotel, there is a spirit who is praying and says, "O great sun, frigid son of Sol, surrender yourself to the eclipse, grant life to the soulless bones." Keyword being soulless here. And then another ghost says, "Lord Miquella, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers were lacking. Your comrade remains soulless." So these followers of Miquella were trying to perform a ritual which would cause an eclipse, the swallowing of the sun. As a result, would restore the soul of a particular comrade, the soulless demigod. And we can assume that this is the reason why Commander Niall is guarding half of a medallion, the left half of the medallion that accesses the Halig tree. Niall is defending the route to Miquella, who in turn is attempting to resurrect Godwyn, Niall's long-past master. Knight Loretta's lore, specifically why Loretta can be fought both at Caria Manor and the Halig tree. So you're right, Loretta has two forms, Royal Knight Loretta and Loretta Knight of the Halig tree. And as we previously discussed on this channel, we know that in this game there are a few enemies that have two forms that you encounter in different places. One of these forms is an image of the past, how they were in their prime, a snapshot of how they used to be. And then the other form is how they are in the present day. So Royal Knight Loretta, the one found at Caria Manor, is a spirit from the past. And as you can see, she has a spectral appearance. This is when Loretta was a royal knight for the Carian family. She was tasked with protecting Rani as a personal guard. And she also serves as a physical barrier to our progression with Rani's questline. We have to defeat Loretta's spirit in order to proceed with Rani's quest. But one day, Loretta decided that she no longer wanted to protect the Carian family. She wanted to protect a different group of people, the Albinorics. Loretta, once a royal Carian knight, went on a journey in search of a haven for Albinorics. and determined that the Halig tree was their best chance for eventual salvation. So that's why we can find Loretta at the Halig tree as well. She decided to make it her mission to save the poor forsaken Albinaurics. And this wasn't an easy process. The sorcery Loretta's mastery tells us that this was a long, bloody journey to seek out a place where the Albinaurics could live in peace. She must have really resonated with this cause to do so. It is implied that the Carian family were the ones who actually created the Albinaurics, and are the ones to blame for their poor circumstances and treatment. The Albinaurics' most formidable foes were sorcerers, after all, and as Loretta was closely involved with the dealings of the Carian family, it's likely that she might have learned about this dark secret, and as a result she wanted nothing further to do with them. Another interesting theory is that Loretta herself might have been an Albinauric. We know that first generation Albinaurics are humanoid in appearance. They are also skilled in archery and have weak legs. That's why we usually see them sitting or riding on something. Just like how Loretta is always riding her horse, which suggests she might not actually be able to walk unaided. However, a big hole in this theory is that Loretta doesn't bleed silver like all the other Albinaurics. She bleeds red blood. So it's a fairly big discrepancy in what we know for a fact about this species. But for whatever reason, Loretta was passionate about establishing a new base for the Albinaurics and defending it with her life. And that place in particular happens to be Miquella's Halig tree. If you have anything to add to the theories or disagree, please, I welcome all discussion about this game. I'm sorry content's been a little slow at the moment. If you haven't noticed, I have moved place, so I'd been settling in for a while, but I'm now back and just so motivated to keep making videos for you guys. So thank you all so much for your patience. And thank you to my channel members: Reeses5, Jawbite, Grim, Kyle Caldwell, Manu999, Hellborn Hero, Ratoya Blom, Exile Turtle, Bloodfallen223, Kichu, Moncaro, Jeremy, Samfani, Azael, Joe Africano, True Fenrir, Nubist, Chase Hinton, and Just Nick. Thank you guys so much. Bye bye.